All right, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. I'm here with a guest who has been on the show in the past, but as we were talking sort of before we started recording, it's been a while. It's been probably, I don't know, 5 years at least now since you were on, and it was a very different context than you're appearing here on the podcast now. So I think that the best way to start this off is if you want to introduce yourself and give a bit of background, first of all, about what it is you do as a musician and what you have done.
My name's Andrew Floyd. As a musician, when you called me before, I was with a band called Boss Logan. I was the bass player and the social media guru for them. In at the end of 2019, I had to leave the band because of my wife has multiple sclerosis. She's got primary progressive, which is the worst kind, which basically isn't the Selma Blair kind of multiple sclerosis. It's basically continually progressing. So from the time of the start of the pandemic, she could still walk. Within a year, she was in a hospital bed, and I became her primary caregiver. Excuse me, along with some help from family and such. But in that time, I needed to sort of find a way to work out my feelings on that. I've had to, quit jobs and things like that because, you're staying up all night taking care of your wife. You can't really work a job.
I believe it, yeah.
And it turned into writing an album, releasing an album just at the end of 2020, and then another one this past November.
And your experiences with what you've been dealing with your wife's health issues, that's very much informed the music you've been writing as well, right?
Yes, the first album that came out in 2020 was still positive, mostly about how we're, all the lyrics and all the music was based on how we're going to get through this. We're going to figure out our new lives. It's going to take a lot of work for us to do it, but we're a good team. And this one here, 2 years later, it's a covers album. It sort of begins with anger and then slowly falls down a hole of depression. So by the end of it, it's pretty sad. And it's just dealing with how this has come on so quickly.
Yeah.
And managing my own emotions through songs that I feel really help with that progression.
Does this project, like, is it cathartic for you to sort of, I mean, even though this is a covers album, is it part of the reason you're doing it to just kind of get those emotions out in a creative way or in a way that makes sense to you?
That's 100% what it is. When I first started it, I originally thought maybe I could get a band together, maybe I could do this stuff live. But at this point, with the amount of work that it is to be with her and to make sure that she's okay, that's not something in the foreseeable future. It's really just a way to show people and to let it go myself. And hopefully at some point out there, if there's another person who's in a spot similar to mine, if they hear this and they relate to that and it helps them just understand that there's someone else out there that's going through it,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. What's the reception been to it? Because I mean, on one hand, obviously you're putting it out in the world. You want people to hear it. You want people to react to it. But you're dealing with something so personal, and like in the case with this current record, like you said, it's a downer, right? I mean, it's not
Yeah.
it's covers, but it's not a very happy set of cover songs. What's the response been? Like, how do you is it awkward for people to respond to this?
People that I know or family members, yes, absolutely. I'm a most of the time pretty positive person, so I could put a positive spin on anything. We we update our situation quite a lot on social media because a lot of people care, and
Yeah.
we like kind of putting out the sad stuff on social media because there's not a lot of that, right? Everyone's all positive about their vacation. They don't want to hear about my wife that's going through sepsis.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
But it's been positive for the most part. Musician friends and friends of mine that I've spoken to that know really well, and some other people that have just randomly messaged me out of nowhere, very positive, saying like I'm happy you can get this out, and it must be cathartic. Whereas closer family members, have that awkward feeling like you're the cousin at the Christmas party who no one's spoken to in a long time, kind of feeling.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
want to talk about it, but they don't really want to talk about it.
Well, it almost seems like you're making it more open to talk about because you're putting it out there, but it's also you're putting something so personal out there that I can see why there'd be sort of hesitation on some people's part.
Yeah, especially I think the anger gets them more than the depression part.
Yeah.
The angry songs are more surprising to them because I don't think people don't generally see me as an angry person. So I don't think they even know that it's in there.
Right. And to kind of hear it to full throated like that. Yeah.
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 This is actually the first song on the album is a Nine Inch Nails cover, and with the help of friend of mine who runs Pictus Productions just outside of North Selkirk, I was able to really belt out
Yeah.
Nine Inch Nails. I'm not the greatest singer in the world, but hearing myself be able to hit those notes in like a hard, aggressive way, I was like, holy crap, it's in there.
Yeah. Well, and it's very raw. Like, oh, the covers, the song selection, obviously, like you said, it has feelings behind it and the reasons. I'm sure there's reasons why you chose every individual track there,
Yeah,
but the
yeah,
whole thing is very raw sounding, even on songs that maybe aren't necessarily that. I don't want to say heavy because it's heavy at points, but it's kind of it's grimy, like which
yeah.
is that an aesthetic choice or is that just how it came out?
It is. It is that I went through quite a lot of songs that I felt um, could potentially be there, but just didn't have the right flow. I really needed something to show that it was not just all sadness or anger. I really wanted people to sort of feel it along with me, so that they could feel like a whole year. That's kind of encapsulates a whole year, that album. It started out angry, and the last song was the last one I recorded, which was maybe a month before it came out,
Okay.
and it was just that's where I was at. Like I was like, I'm not in that place of I don't know how much longer I could do this. It's like, when's my body going to fail? And for your listeners, you and I tried to get this last week, but since that time, my wife is still in the hospital. Today is day 40.
Wow.
And last Friday, my body completely failed me. I was sleeping in the hospital every night on a broken chair or the floor,
Yeah.
just to be near her 24 hours a day. And then I got the flu. And since that day, it's been almost a week. And I'm this is the most I've done in a week just talking to you.
Well, maybe just to sort of give some context to this, can you sort of describe the illness and what comes along with it? Because I think a lot of people have a general idea, but like you said, it's not the Selma Blair version, right? It's not the
Yeah.
maybe the sanitized version that people see with in the media. Like, what does it mean? What is she going through?
So it's not, yeah, she's not going to be on Dancing with the Stars anytime soon.
Right,
So,
right.
so yeah, as I mentioned, at the start of the pandemic, she could still walk. She had a walking aid. She has since then, now she's in a hospital bed. There's Hoyer lifts. We have home care every day. She's incontinent. Right now, she basically has really only the use of her right hand, so she can mumble around on a mouse and speaks normal, hears normal. But so it's been a long time. In 2018, actually, the band I was in, Boss Logan, we had her and I got married in the middle of the show
I think
as a
I heard
surprise
about that. I think
wedding.
I saw it on the Boss Logan social media or something. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and she could still walk then. So it's been that quick. It's been less than
Wow.
4 years. Um, and it's we went to just before I started writing this album, we were in Mexico doing. She was getting a stem cell transplant, which was supposed to slow down the progression of the MS. But we got COVID while we were down there and both nearly died. So, it's all just been a complete shit show since then. But basically, it's at this point, it's hard to explain to someone who I'm sure lots of people out there have someone that knows someone who has MS, but
Mhm.
everything that this is the hardest kind. This is you're watching your family member lose their body
Yeah,
slowly
that's
over time.
brutal.
Yeah, it's been, and fortunately enough for me, I'm really an in the moment person, so I don't often, scroll through Facebook memories or whatever, because I know if I do that, it's just going to be a slippery slope of sadness and emotion.
Yeah.
So, I don't know how many years we have left together. Um, it's hard to tell, and it's something I'm coming to grips with. But she's the love of my life, and I'm going to be there as much as I can. So even just being at home for a week and not being there because I'm can't go to the hospital because I'm sick
Yeah.
it's killing me. It's like the apartment's too quiet. I want to write music, but I'm like so just out of it. It's pretty terrible.
Has she heard these records? Like
Yeah.
the stuff you what does she think about it?
She thinks I could be a little bit more mellow. There's been a couple of times where I've written stuff just for her, like a birthday present and stuff, and it's like nice cutesy covers,
Yeah.
royal wood or something with a ukulele or whatever. But I think she got more out of the first one because they were specifically written for her. Every song was written for her or from my perspective. I know there's one or two that she likes on this one, and it's when I'm not yelling and screaming.
There's quite a bit of yelling and screaming on this one too, though.
There
So
is,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So when did you find time to make these records? I mean, like you said, you've been at the hospital a lot over the past little while, especially with this most recent one. You just kind of fit it in when you could, or
Yeah, so because she has home care 5 days a week, 9 to 5,
yeah,
I can sneak away and really work. And I kind of need to do it fast because it's once you get into that moment of like you really know what you want to be doing, I have a timeline. I can't sit there for 6 hours and go, okay, is that guitar part right? I think the second or third song, I can't remember what the order. The third song I did in like the whole song was like in an hour.
yeah.
Like I went from okay, here's the guitar part. Okay, I gotta do this. So the guitar, the bass, the drums, were all done in an hour. Then I did the vocals later at the production studio. Um, but I was just trying to do it as fast as I could, as consistent as I could.
Well, I think that rawness kind of comes through on it. And that's what I like about it. I think is that kind of not that it sounds rushed or anything, but it has definitely the immediacy to it.
Right. Yeah. Because I'm dealing with a specific timeline. She could call at any point. Home care could yell at me and say, there's something going on. She needs our help. And that happened throughout the album every now and again when you get into a good flow and it's like, crap, this is way more important. But
Yeah, priorities,
um,
obviously, right? Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so I got it done. I started it, I think, in July, and the last of it was done in October, and then I did almost all the vocals out at the at the at the Pick This production studio.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So obviously, because of the situation and because of the subject matter and all of that, everything that kind of goes into this project, you're not putting these records out and promoting them and doing it the same way you would have done with previous bands. Like it's just
No.
so. What is I don't want to say what is the goal of it because I think you've explained what kind of the goal is for you, but what is sort of I don't know the best way to ask this. Like, what is the sort of the future plans for this? Is it just when you feel inspired to kind of put some of that feeling into music, you're going to do more of it, or like, is there how much I guess advanced planning goes into it? Maybe is a better way of
Well,
wording
I
that.
do have I've had this I've had an EP in mind for about 6 months now, specifically based on our trip to Mexico. I've got it all laid out. I've got the lyrics laid out, and I've got like the idea of the sound in my head. It's just finding the time.
Of
You know,
course,
in a perfect world, I think a lot of this stuff would sound really good with the band, and maybe that's somewhere down the line. Um, I'd love to play a couple of these songs live. I think it would really punch well. But yeah, and a lot of it too is a couple of years ago, just at the start of the pandemic, I've been trying so many different things to find a way to get my emotions out. I had a very short-lived podcast
yeah,
called Caregiver's Journey, and it was specifically so I could talk to other caregivers around the world, just not just to help them, but to help me. And then when things got too hard on me, it took a back seat. And but the problem is I really love the idea of caregivers coming around because they're people like us are we kind of hide in the background a lot and we don't let our feelings out until we explode.
I believe it. Yeah,
So, this is my way of showing that I'm not going to explode anytime soon. So I do have stuff. My plan is to do something like once a year.
okay,
Um, and maybe as things progress or however things go in the future for my wife and I'd like to play a show or five and see where I can go from there.
yeah. Well, and you presumably, like you said, you'd want to have a band backing you up. It wouldn't just be a solo thing, right? If you played
Yeah,
these live, yeah.
yeah, I do have another side project band called Dark Stars, which we've kind of been around for quite a while. But every time we try and record, the pandemic sort of restricted us. And the guitar player lives in Selkirk, and the bass player or the drummer lives in Elma. So it's not like it's easy for the three of us to get together. But I've got that as well. It's just this stuff is a lot sort of deeper and punches right to what I'm needing at the time.
Yeah, it's more top of mind, obviously, as well, just because you're in it, you're living it
Yeah,
every day. Yeah, yeah.
every day.
Well, what is I mean, I guess sort of going back to my previous question, like actually, you know what? Let's just scrap that. you mentioned something a few minutes ago about the idea with the podcast and talking to other caregivers. Is there is there a wider community around MS specifically of families affected and people affected that you have sort of been able to tap into? And the reason I ask this now is because like we're talking on Zoom right now. The pandemic has screwed up everyone's ability to gather in any sort of meaningful way, even now.
Yeah.
Like, have you found those people who are dealing with some of the same issues that your family is? And have you been able to connect with them over this 2 years of everyone being shut in?
Yes and no. There are some, Facebook is just such a weird tornado vortex. You can either find something really good or you don't. And I found when I originally joined a couple groups, I think I was still in denial a little bit about like where she was at.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were saying, I'm annoyed with my person. I fucking hate them. They just yell at me. And her and I have never had that. And so it was hard for me to kind of come to terms with all these other people just saying they hated their partners
Yeah.
two
Yeah.
or 3 years in. Um, and I think Reddit's been really good actually. Reddit is probably one of the better places for that. But it's kind of why I sort of wanted to start my own podcast as well, was to sort of make my own community.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, as I mentioned, there's so many so many caregivers who don't know where to go, or don't feel comfortable sharing, or the big thing about people like us is that we feel like we're not as important because we're the ones doing the work, holding the person up. Everyone cares for them because they're losing their ability to do whatever.
Of course. Yeah.
And for us, it's like we take a back seat to that. And so it's hard to, a lot of people have a hard time coming to terms with the ability to open up about it and not feel bad that they're complaining or um, thinking that they're talking ill about their partner or whatever.
Yeah. When you did the podcast, was it easy to find people to talk to?
Yeah, it was. And they were from all over the world too. I was waking up at 3 a.m. to talk to someone in India. It was kind of neat.
That is cool. Yeah. Is
Yeah.
that is that are you hoping to kind of bring that back if you
It,
find the time for it, or?
it's so much work. I look at what you're doing and I'm like, oh my God, I don't think I could do that much work.
Yeah, I'm in too deep now to stop. So
Yeah. Yeah. With the amount of time that I have, I was like, I don't think I can do this anymore.
yeah, yeah,
Plus, when she was getting worse, it's not like I could, if I had like a weekly commitment, there's no way I could have done it.
yeah. You can't just all of a sudden, oh, sorry, it's 3 a.m. I got to go talk to this person halfway across the world. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And deal with their feelings while also trying to be awake.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yes, probably not for the best. Um,
No.
what is the significance behind the name of the project?
Oh gosh. That's the fun thing. So Lyft, I actually thought about getting rid of it a long time ago because it's such a stupid place that it comes from.
Okay,
Um, when I used to go to the movie Village in Osborne there, I was renting like as much as you can because they had that deal, right? It's like
I used to
seven.
do that. Yep, you get the little card and you can. Yep, yep.
Yeah. So I found this. I think I still have it around. I bought the VHS from them. I think I still have it here. I found a VHS in the horror section of a movie about an elevator that kills people, and it's called The Lift.
Okay,
I fell in love with that movie. It's the dumbest elevator horror movie you've ever seen. It was remade into a movie called Shaft or Down with Naomi Watts and
okay.
Ron Perlman and stuff. It's just a really bad, campy horror movie, and it was the only thing I could find online that no one had taken. So, hence the name Lift. Yeah,
Well, yeah, I have probably the world's stupidest podcast name, so I get it. You pick something and it works, and then yeah, for sure. So
it's gonna follow me forever. I don't care.
yeah, was there a reason though you didn't want to do this under your own name? Was that always sort of the plan, or did it feel too personal to sort of attach your? I mean, I know it's so personal anyway.
Yeah, I feel weird. I've I've always felt weird about having my name as the name of a project. I've
Yeah,
always, I don't know, it just seems strange to me. There's no other reason for it. It's just like I don't feel Andrew Floyd. I don't know. That just doesn't have a ring to it to put to all this angry music. It's just not.
yeah.
I feel like I should be doing pop by that name or some stupid crap. So no, yeah, that's basically
That's no fair enough. Fair enough. So are there the cover? It's funny because I was listening. I think when we first talked about this, I'm pretty sure you told me it was a cover record, and
yeah.
that had disappeared from my head when I was listening to it, and I had it on the background while I was doing stuff, and it was like, oh, there's a cover song because I recognized whatever song it was, and then a few songs later, well, there's another cover song, and then it dawned on me, wait a minute, these have all been cover songs.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
is that sort of track listing there? Is that fairly indicative of the type of stuff you listen to, like in your own time?
Yes. I poached quite a bit from albums that I like or songs that have been sort of with me in the journey, especially the last track, which I'm surprised turned out as well as it did. Um, yeah, I, I also, I think that I've been kind of listening to a lot of older, weirder Neil Young throughout this time too.
Well,
Like,
that's what twigged me onto it being cover album. Because this is Sleeps with Angels, which is not necessarily the most highly recommended Neil Young record, but it's a really cool
yeah,
album.
yeah, and I've got Trans over here just right by my record
I
player,
love that album. I'm glad to see that because that is like one of the most unfairly maligned albums ever. It's amazing.
It's fantastic. And it's just, I really find myself listening to a lot more musicians that are doing the weird stuff.
Yeah.
Like Paul McCartney's Two, which has like temporary secretary on it. I'm not sure if you've
Okay.
heard that, but
No, I haven't. No.
it's his version almost of Neil Young's Trans, where it's electronic and kind of awkward. You
Okay.
know, music like that I think I like the most, where it's a musician really trying something out of their element, and whether everyone loves it or everyone hates it, which is what seems like with Neil Young's Trans, I find it fascinating, and that's the kind of music that I listen to because for them, to me, it's a bit more personal.
Well, Trans, that album is especially personal. It actually fits well
Yeah,
with what you're doing because of the context of in which he made those songs for his son's like therapy with the computer voice and everything. Like it's super
right.
cool. So that kind of works really well. It was probably not intentionally, but it's cool that you're
No,
listening to that now and then you're making these records.
yeah, yeah. I should have maybe covered something from that instead of from Sleeps with
Sleeps with
Angels.
Angels. Yeah, yeah.
I didn't think of that.
And then you have the Springsteen cover, which is definitely not one of the kind of canonical great Springsteen songs, but from that
Actually,
like mid '90s sort of.
my friend who recorded the vocals for that he was looking at me. He's like, "Man, this song's not a good Bruce Springsteen song." I'm like, "I know, but it fits perfectly with this album, doesn't it?"
Yeah,
Do you
it works.
do you remember the music video? It was on Much Music like
Yes,
all the time.
I do remember. Yeah, that was what would have been like '94 or something, '95, something
I
like
think
that.
yeah, about somewhere around 95. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I,
Let's
I
say it's a
think
weird one.
I think it's listed as his least favorite song.
I can see that.
And for context too, when I was in the band with the Dark Stars guys, we at the beginning we were doing a lot of covers to get into stuff, and I kept wanting them to play "Coconut Cream" by the Tragically Hip,
Okay.
which is also listed as their like least favorite song. So maybe I have a thing going for that.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said for it. Obviously, anything that ended up on a record, it was there for a reason, right? Whether it turned
Yeah,
out to be beloved or hated or whatever, like that at the time, it meant something to the people making it. So
right.
you can find gems in some of the weirdest shit for sure.
It's way more fun finding those.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Yeah.
What at this point, what's the best way for people to find this? Because like we said, right now you're not playing shows. That is sort of up in the air as to whether that'll happen at some point in the future.
Yep.
Um, how do people find your music? How do they get in touch with you if they want to? What's the best way to sort of track you down?
You can buy the album on Bandcamp, and you get a whole bunch of extra covers that are either great or terrible. You can find it on Spotify, Amazon, iTunes, on all your popular streaming places. You can get to me on social media under the name Trondrew, Trondrew. I'm pretty much the only one there. And yeah, I will respond to anything. If you've got any compliments, suggestions, you can tell me that song sucks, whatever you want to do. I'll be there.
Are you are you open to talking to people about being a caregiver? I assume you are, based on sort
100%.
of yeah.
Yeah,
So if
100%.
people are experiencing something similar and want to just compare notes or whatever,
Oh
you're the
yeah,
guy.
I'll talk to anyone about it if it no matter what it is. I'm not just gonna rattle off what I've been going through. I want to know, and the reason for that is too because it kind of takes me out of my element and allows me to sort of live like a normal human for a little while if I'm hearing someone else's problems.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yeah.